Hi, good night, Tobago. And we are live in Tobago Updates Television Studio. Once again, I bring to you another live episode of For the Hour. I hope you guys are having a great Monday so far, a productive Monday, all right? And I hope that the day went in such a way that you could set the tone for the week in a good manner. You know, sometimes when the Monday ain't go too good, sometimes you had to fight through the rest of the week. But I hope that is not your portion, right? And you start off the Monday right, and you had a productive day to set up the rest of the week. By now, we should have had most of our kids back to school, or if not all of them back to school by now. All right. So to the kids again, as I wished you last week, I would like you to have the most productive school year. All right, try your best, do your best, cooperate with the teachers, be well behaved. Right, but we here in Tobago, we continue to talk at For the Hour. We continue to talk about and air out Tobago's main issues and current events for the Tobago public to hear and for the Tobago public to participate. All right, we have some exciting conversations in store for you guys tonight, and so we're going to get into that soon. But coming home over the weekend, I journeyed down to Trinidad just to, take in some of the cricket, TKR, down in the Brian Lara Cricket Academy. And it was a very, very, very awesome atmosphere down there, as one of my contemporaries in Tobago say she wonders why it is that we can't have those kind of, or that magnitude of events taking place here in Tobago. And as I sat there taking in the game, that is one of the things that came through my mind. Also, when I go down, I like to observe things, just to give a contrast of how Tobago is going in contrast to Trinidad and the development and stuff. Coming back home on the ferry, everything went well, going on the ferry, coming back home. But I was privy to see the new, the temporary ship that was brought in to ease the cargo woes on the sea bridge. And when I looked at it, I was a bit underwhelmed as to the size and everything. It's kind of small, so I'm hoping that in the efforts that are already ongoing, that it's added to the fleet to bring cargo across. Because when I look at it, and the good thing about it is that I was able to see it next to the Cabo Star, right? And it looks like that boat could fit into the Cabo Star at least 5 to 7 times. That is to tell you the sheer size of the carrying capacity of the Cabo Star that needs to be replaced, all right? You would need about 5 to 7 of those boats just to carry one trip on the Cabo Star. And obviously, everything is out in the open as well. There's less protection and all of that. But I hope that they use it to its full potential, that we can be able to bring across some building material, more food stuff, and more cargo in general. All right, but we're going to go to tonight's topic. And tonight's topic, as we have seen being circulated on social media now, Mr. Watson Duke has since extended an olive branch to Mr. Farley Chavez Agustin, our Chief Secretary. And by extension, his party, the TPP, right, the Tobago People's Party. Before I bring in our guest tonight, I just want to cue up a clip that we have that was extracted from social media as well, all right, just to give some context to the persons who haven't seen the clip before. All right, producers, we have the clip.
I want to say part of the way forward is to write a letter, which I did, to Farley, for us to reconcile our differences. Put it aside and put Tobago first. Because there's no way that thing that they have can defeat the PNM. It cannot. The thing that they have cannot defeat the PNM. Tobago wants to see us work together for the common good.
All right, and that was the political leader of the Progressive Democratic Patriots, Mr. Watson Duke. So after going down to Trinidad, Mr. Duke went down to Trinidad to continue his political aspiration and to expand his party's reach in Trinidad. He fought for, advocating to become the mayor of Port of Spain. I see that recently appointed a mayor of Port of Spain, who is not Mr. Watson Duke, so I don't think he was successful in that regard. And also, he contested or sent up representative for the recent local government elections, which were dominated by the PNM and the UNC, both winning 7 seats or 7 corporations each. All right, so again, he was not able to make any headways with capturing any of the representative local corporations in Trinidad. So Mr. Watson Duke returns to Tobago soil, extending an olive branch, as you might say, to Mr. Farley Chavez Augustine. So he's going to write a letter to Mr. Farley Chavez Augustine. I want to introduce our panel tonight. Firstly, we have Mr. Leroy George. Mr. Leroy George is the former PDP research officer in the Minority Leaders Office. We also have Mr. Lance O'Geese, who is a community activist and a trade union officer. And we have Mr. Barry Nelson, political activist as well. Gentlemen, welcome to the show, right? All 3 of you are no strangers to the show. So we're gonna, you know how things go. We continue the discussions, just first thoughts and stuff. But I want to start off with Leroy, because Leroy always, and I will never forget he told me this, right? Mr. Leroy always has a sore spot in his heart for Mr. Duke. All right, so I just want to get Leroy's point first. Leroy, what do you think he's going to write in this letter? What do you think is going to be contents of the letter? What he's going to tell Farley? What could he possibly tell Farley?
I'm sure whatever he writes in the letter would be something that would take into account that these 2 men have a long history together. Mr. Watson Solomon Duke is the political father of Mr. Farley Chavez Augustine. We were not aware of his existence for the greater part across Trinidad and Tobago. And as a result, there is some history that could be brought to the forefront of the conversation. They understand each other well, those 2 gentlemen.
Right.
I'm sure he is going to remind Mr. Farley, in not the most blatant of words, but subtly enough, that he is in a very weakened position as a result of the events that took place leading up to the police investigation. I'm sure he would remind Mr. Farley that he would have been in assistance to Mr. Chavez in times when Mr. Chavez was even more immature or new in the political and not as politically astute as Mr. Duke. And as a result, and above all, that if things are to continue going in the direction they go, we could expect a return of the PNM, which I don't have the biggest problem with, except the fact that I see the PNM not showing any remorse for the many things that they did wrong the first 21 years that they governed this island. But for a lot of anti-PNMites, getting rid of the PNM for the sake of getting rid of the PNM supersedes a lot, even morality. And I'm sure that is the conversation. Would include those things that I talk about, but it would not be limited to those things which I just spoke about.
Right. And I remember listening to Mr. Duke, and as you talk about the history, Mr. Duke would have said from before his first, Mr. Augustine's first suits to take his positions on the front line, you know. She dress him up nice and bring him nice suits and all of those things. So he could one day if I'll ever pay him back for them suits. Anyways, we continue the conversation, right? So Mr. Nelson, why you see Mr. Duke comes back to Tobago. I just want to get your immediate thoughts on the olive branch he extended back to Farley again.
Well, good night to my fellow panelists. Good night to the viewers. I could remember, I think it was in 1999, 98, 99, coming on to the new millennium of 2000. When I went into politics, and we were, I was in a meeting with Hochoy Charles, and we were strategizing for elections coming up, and we were talking about motorcade and big trucks and so forth. And Mr. Hochoy Charles would have listened to everybody around the table. And then when everybody gave their views, as Hochoy will always do, he allow everybody to speak, and then he will reply. Mr. Charles said, the most important time in a country is elections. This is the time where election is where it's the most serious time in a country. So he's not where when you have meetings, people are supposed to listen what the politician have to say, what they were going to do in order to better your lives. So he was not in the business of big truck and music. Because when you have big truck and music and flag waving, it distracts you from what the people say they're going to do for you.
Right.
Motorcades, also a distraction. It's like Fetan party, and he always say, election is always the most important time in the history, and that stick with me. Now, Watson was the leader of the PDP. He used, every night of the election, he used to introduce Farley as the
Deputy.
As the deputy and the leader, the presumptuous chief secretary. They won the election, and Mr. Duke was given the responsibility for internals, deputy secretary, which is responsible for autonomy, for advancing the process of autonomy. So Watson had a big job. Was given a big job. He was given the chief secretary then, not Farley, because Farley was elected chief secretary. So the chief secretary gave him the respect as a leader, give him some responsibility as a leader will get it. And what he did with that responsibility, the people of Argyle, Roxborough would have elected him, and by extension the people, to see about the business of Tobago and to advance the autonomy that we campaign and he speaks about. And what did he do?
He defected to Trinidad.
He defected to Trinidad. I say no more. I don't know what he's going to put in the letter. What would he put in the letter to tell the chief secretary?
Maybe he should talk to the constituents as well. Write a letter to them as well.
The only Watson coming back to Tobago, bringing the whole idea that we need constitutional reform, and part of that constitutional reform, that we have a right to recall elected members. And if that aspect was in the Constitution and the Tobago House of Assembly, we should have an election for Mr. Duke. So
for the seat.
For the seat. Because he would have elected, he would have neglected the people of Argyle and Roxborough who supported him. So he should write to the election administration. I don't know, I can't know the process right now. That is the letter he should write. And asking for a by-election. So he's supposed to have a by-election in the Tobago House of Assembly for the Argyle Roxborough seat. Because the people of Argyle and Roxborough need a new mandate, because he would have neglected those people that went to Trinidad.
Right. Mr. Lance, what do you think about Mr. Duke coming back to Tobago and wanting to team back up with Mr. Augustine once more?
I welcome Mr. Duke back to Tobago. But, there is a story told of an American and an Englishman both working on a project. The American was on the top floor and the Englishman working on the floor below him. A hammer got loose from the American on the top floor, and the American, in an attempt to caution the Englishman, said, "Look out." The Englishman, being true to English interpretation, extended his neck or his head out the window and was injured.
Okay.
Unless there is orientation, interpretation is personal to holder.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, Mr. Duke can be interpreting reconciliation in one context, whereas for Farley, reconciliation can be in another context.
Mm-hmm.
It is my view that working together does not mean working in one entity. Mr. Duke can have his entity, his political entity.
Mm-hmm.
Farley has his political entity. When there is agreement on a matter, it strengthens the cause or the pursuit or the process, and therefore all is well.
Mm-hmm.
The same two separate entities can now disagree on any matter for Tobago. Mr. Duke disagrees in his entity, Farley agrees differently, and therefore there is no counterproductivity in the process of one entity pursuing Tobago's objective or its development. It's my opinion, we can work together, but in separate entities where none affects the other.
Right. Well, Leroy, why do you think he came back?
No, he hasn't returned as yet. I must commend my colleague to the right of me with his suggestion. That's an excellent suggestion. You don't have
To form a coalition?
if they want to form a coalition, the fact that they are assemblymen, right? If you look at the Tobago House of Assembly in its original build-up or in its original structure, right? Which was to make Tobago an efficient place in a time when the island of Tobago was transitioning from being controlled entirely by the Amerindians, that is before the 1760s rather, and now it had become a British colony and they needed to accomplish a lot in a short period of time. So assemblymen were not called upon to work against each other, but with each other to bring about exponential growth in the shortest of time. And they were successful in doing so. We would have had over 100 estates, etc., in the place of Tobago, within only a few years producing a ridiculous amount of food. We know that happened under slavery, etc. However, it still remains true that the Tobago House of Assembly in its original spirit calls for assemblymen to work together. And the Constitution today, the Tobago House of Assembly Constitution, does not recognize political parties. It recognizes assemblymen. And the Chief Secretary has the ability to bring into his executive council any assemblyman or councillor for whatever purpose. I don't think anybody has taken up the position that Mr. Duke was supposed to take up, which is to seek after Tobago's autonomy issue, and also to extend beyond Tobago in getting the Tobago diaspora involved in the build-up of Tobago. And so, as my colleague put on the right here, it could be done in a way where barriers are not crossed. And that would be nice to happen. However, I do suspect...
You still answer my question, eh?
Yes. What's the question?
Where do you think he come back to Tobago politics? Because he has not
Because
been active in Tobago politics for a while.
That is a very good one, because I would like to caution persons who are stating that it was ignoble of him to change course and decide to attempt to become the mayor of Port of Spain. In that he, as the assemblyman for Roxborough, should have focused on Roxborough. There's a lot of hypocrisy in that statement. And the reason there's a lot of hypocrisy in that statement, I would have heard Dr. Shane Mohammed here on the same Tobago updates, make a couple of statements that show that he does not know the history of the PDP, as most of the political commentators, especially on the QTP side, do not know the history of the PDP. And he would have stated that Mr. Augustine became the chief sec candidate only after Watson Duke lost the general election. That is not true. The reality of the situation is that was announced to the public and to the party on the day that the executive council was elected, me myself being the elections officer through that same election process. And the understanding at that time was that even though he was the assemblyman for Roxborough, even though he was the minority leader for the Tobago House of Assembly, he was going to take the position of candidate for Tobago East so that he could have an ability to present Tobago's argument from
In
a
the parliament.
Tobago-centric perspective in the parliament.
Okay.
And no one had a problem with that because at least none of the present QTP supporters who are now speaking about how evil and wicked he is for having taken that approach, none of them had a problem with that because the friend, Mr. Farley Chavez Augustine, would have been chief secretary as a result. And so it is consistency that we are seeing, whereby he always, according to himself, and I have no reason to disbelieve him, seeks to seek the best interests of Tobago by elevating himself to a higher level on the political ladder. Because you can't be good for others until you're good for yourself.
Right.
And so if he had to step down because he became the mayor as the assemblyman for Roxborough, we would remember that the Port of Spain port is located in the area that he would have been
Which would help us out a lot.
Which would have helped us out a lot.
Barry want to chime in. Barry.
Leroy, lads, let me just respond to, if I allow me to respond to Lance proposed thing what he just said. Lance, what Watson is asking for is a political affiliation, which is different from a governance point of view. Watson is still the representative. We don't have the recall to recall a representative. So he's still in the Tobago House. He could still once he could bring motion, he could ask questions, he could suggest. So he could from a governance point of view, he still could reach out to the chief secretary and his executive council. But he don't want a governance relationship. He wants a political relationship, which is useless. We don't go back there. We seen what could happen with a political. We saw what happened in the political. Why would you want to go back in a political relationship when he could still, from a governance point of view, within the Tobago House Assembly, still have the air and the thing of the chief secretary, Farley and the chief secretary. So from a government point of view, yes, the house is there, he's a representative. But from a political point of view, no, useless.
Now, let me be very clear. When I say they both operate from their political entity, I am not suggesting an accommodation in terms of a political
You said that.
Huh?
You said that.
So let me be clear. Watson is the assemblyman for Roxborough.
Yeah. He's a member of the house.
Yes.
Right.
And no one can remove him until next election.
Exactly.
So I am saying he remains the assemblyman. He represents the PDP.
Right.
Farley Chavez Augustine remains the representative for Palatibia, Speyside, Charlotteville.
And the chief secretary.
And the chief
secretary for
yes,
finance, right.
He's also the interim leader of the TPP.
Right.
And I'm saying for the purpose of the House, Farley agrees on a position Watson is free to agree or disagree.
Well, right. And this is from a government, and this is what I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah.
explained to you. From a governance side of view.
Yeah,
you don't have to have a political
So
affiliation.
I'm saying that
If I may
any
jump
day,
in at any point, I'd
any
greatly
day that
appreciate
Watson
it.
decide I'm in agreement with
Yeah,
this
that'd be
position, so be it. If any day he decides I'm not in agreement, so be it. But there is no arrangement in terms of accommodation between the two political entities, the TPP and the PPP, so that one affects the other.
Okay. All
Two
right.
separate
If I may-
entities.
if I may
We're
just-
going to have to take a break first.
Okay.
So hold that thought, Leroy. When you come back, we'll continue. All right? So we just go to pay some bills and we'll be right back when we continue our discussion. All right? Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Tobago, after freeness is more speed and better TV. Get a free Samsung smartphone and free installation, plus 200 megabits per second, Paramount Plus, and more for only $299 with a select 200 plan from Flow. Visit online at discoverflow.co today.
Right now, Tobagonians are just currying down to Bonaccord, right in Stobie Local Road. You know why? To come down and shop at Authentic Builders General Hardware, the only hardware store in Tobago that is giving you guys Trinidad prices. So for instance, such as steel, half-inch and 5/8, $7,895. 5/8 construction ply for $260. Every single thing that you will need to do your home renovation or start your new construction, we have it right here. And to get your quotation, it's very easy. Just WhatsApp us at 272-1990 and we will do your free WhatsApp quotation for you.
Mount Pleasant Credit Union Back to School Loan Promotion. Loans up to $15,000. Requirements: job letter and a payslip no more than 1 month old. Utility bill, copy of book list, salary deduction, 10% down payment for self-employed persons, evidence of income and expenditure, bank statement, 12 to 18 months, other supporting document. Promotion ends October 18. Contact us at 639-8375 or 8108 or check us out on www.mpcutobago.com or email us at loan@mpcutobago.com. Mount Pleasant Credit Union's Back to School Loan Promotion.
But this place is boring enough. We don't even do nothing. Let me go somewhere now.
I really want some new things, yes?
Then look no further. Portmore is the place for you.
Oh, really?
Yes.
You can have anything that your heart desires. Take a look for yourselves. A world of endless opportunities. Feeling hungry? Go get something to eat. Books and stationeries, games, and much more. Portmore, the island's beat.
So your car break down.
Oh, no, not again.
And you're worried paying a wrecker could mean a pocket breakdown too. But when you're insured with Tatil, no stress.
Yes!
A Tatil motor policy has lots of benefits that protect your pocket, like free roadside assistance. That's free 24/7 every time, as many times as you need. Tatil, where people are people. A member of the Ansa McCall Group.
There's a new date for Tobago Swim Fest, September 17th, 2023. Come and witness the main event, the 4-kilometer swim from Pigeon Point to Buku Point. More than $25,000 in prizes. It's a family affair, so come out from 11 a.m. on the beautiful Buku Beach. There'll be swimming races, sandcastle building, and seafood on sale. Come and enjoy a fun day at the beach. Calling swimmers from Crown Point to Charlottesville. Registration on the day.
And we're back, and we continue our discussion on our program tonight. All right, just to tell you, we have on panel once more, we have Mr. Lance Ogis, we have Mr. Leroy George, and we have Mr. Barry Nelson. And we're discussing Mr. Duke's return. He is back to exercising his political mind on home soil, all right, extending an olive branch to Mr. Fally Chavez Augustine, stating that they should work together. We're not sure if it's politically or if it's on matters of government governance in the assembly, but he did say that he's going to write a letter to Mr. Fally Chavez Augustine, who is our chief secretary, so that they can work together. But before we left, Mr. Leroy George had a point, and I just want to let him share that point before he forgets it. Go ahead.
Okay, so I want to say that Mr. Lance Ogis was not incorrect in his initial statement that they are capable of working together, not from a party politics perspective, but as assemblymen and as potential secretary and chief secretary, right? I want to say that Mr. Duke had said, because he was asked by a reporter, he had said very specifically that he is not very interested in a union where party politics is concerned. As a matter of fact, he wasn't even particularly interested in a union that went beyond a relationship, a direct relationship between himself and Mr. Chavez. And if there is to be a union between himself and Mr. Chavez that would result in betterment for Tobago, one would assume that what he's speaking about is the type of union that the initial Tobago House of Assembly spoke to or was created for. I heard that somebody in the comment section said they didn't understand what I said when I said that the initial Tobago House of Assembly was to create that transition from the Amerindians, that's the Caribs, the Arawaks, the Taino, Barangwari man, etc., the Amerindians who controlled here until the late 1760s to the new European style civilization. And so Tobago is in a situation, and I want to show two sides of the coin. Tobago is in a situation where our economy has been shrinking since this administration came into office, and it has been shrinking badly. We saw 10% shrinkage in agriculture, 33 to 35% shrinkage in infrastructure, and overall shrinkage in Tobago's production by 2%. And so that is a very unsafe place to be financially. We're very unsafe at this time. We are no longer on the Moody credit rating list, etc. And so experience needs to come into the equation because they are not doing a very good job. And while some of it may be intentional or wrongdoing or even illegality, hence the police investigation, some of it is clearly as a result of incompetence and inexperience. For example, we never saw checks bouncing in the Tobago House of Assembly.
You read? Serious?
We never saw checks bouncing, and I know that because if you look at the law, you would see that when checks bounce, it's a very big problem. So much so that the person who received the check that bounced could even, according to Trinidad and Tobago law, take that person that gave them that check to court and make them pay 10 times the amount that was on that check. And so the other side of the coin is as such. Remember that the reason we have a police investigation involving the chief secretary and other members of his administration is because of a voice recording that was made about 8 months after they came into office. These gentlemen did not have their falling out. There was not a split in the administration. There was a 14-1 situation in contrast to a 13-1-1 situation until 9 months or so, no, not 9 months, an entire year after this administration came into office. So we must ask ourselves, what other damaging information is out there?
Well,
and do we
I
want a
don't know if Leroy
situation?
have the damaging information. You
No,
have
no,
it?
boy. Well, we hear another member of the
Leroy, you have it?
PDP. There's another member of the PDP Executive Council who say that he have damaging information. And
Wait. Hold on.
also,
if Leroy has
I
news
may
to break,
finish
I
this
want
point,
you to break the news.
Hold on.
if I may finish
hold on,
this
hold on.
point,
Hold on.
I have one more point before you
Yeah,
take
go
over, Mr. Nelson. I know how you are accustomed communicating. However, you are with sophisticated men like Mr. Lance Ogisa and myself. We know how to speak when it's time. And of course, our moderator. We have developed to the point whereby we know how to listen when there's a time to listen and speak when there's a time to speak, and we have a moderator to allocate such time. So, my point is this. When we hear how Mr. Duke speaks, he doesn't sound like a person that is groveling. If we are honest with ourselves, he sounds like a person that is in a powerful position. And as such, I would advise QTP supporters to ask themselves if they want to see a continuation of bacchanal politics, or do they want to see the affairs of Tobago be dealt with uninterrupted by what has been interrupting Tobago's political governance for the past couple months.
All right, we let Barry and then we get Lance come in.
Mr. Leroy, you use the word sophisticated people. So wait, let's go back. You said that the economy of Tobago shrunk.
By
right.
2%.
Right. The index that the areas that you just mentioned there, did you do the comparison? What happened in Trinidad?
Yes.
And what is your comparison?
Yes.
No. Well, my time
Trinidad has been seeing exponential double-digit growth at the exact same time Tobago has been seeing.
And why is that? Why is
Do
that?
you know what that
Anyhow,
means?
let me my time to speak. My time
we are
to
going
speak.
to have inflation.
My time to speak. Practice what you preach.
He asked a question.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Double-digit growth. That's the answer to your question.
Right. I thought I came on here to speak about Duke return. But like Leroy carried the conversation.
And I'm going to bring it back, don't worry.
Carried the conversation. Yeah. So I'm not going to respond to things. So I don't know what's the question you want to ask me concerning the topic.
Right. So the next point I wanted to bring up is that Mr. Duke alluded basically to needing each other, the two parties needing each other to defeat the PNM. So I wanted to ask if the panel thinks that is true. Do you think that the TPP in its current dispensation can defeat the PNM on its own, or does the TPP indeed need the help from the PDP? No, in terms of the statement that there's always the great when the PNM anytime history will show anytime the PDP is the PNM is defeated, is the coming in of force. That statement is true. That statement is true that in order to defeat the PNM, most political need to come together.
But at this present time, in terms of the TPT and the PDP and Watson Duke, I don't think the Watson and his party have any political energy as far as that is concerned. And basically, from what I'm seeing here, the PNM people in Tobago have lost confidence in the PNM and is dependent on what the new party under Farley, the TPPT does. No, I must say that there were a lot of potholes that would have happened, but I think that the Chief Secretary and the rest of his team dealt with it amicably in the sense that from a government point of view, of the resources that they available to them and secondly from a political point of view, that everybody did not expect, including Watson, did not expect that those people who left the PDP could have come together and formed themselves in a political party in a short space of time,
Right.
which from the launch was well organized and well thing. I think is that what hurting Leroy and Leroy and other anti-Farley thing and other and Watson. People didn't expect that political maturity, and what Farley have shown and his rest of his executive, they have shown political maturity. They have withstand the storm. I must say they will, and it's a learning process. And by just forming themselves in a party and launching it, from what I see from the launch, I can see only forward and to forge a political union back with it makes no sense. It's anti-productive.
So you
as far as
don't
from a
think
political
that
point
you
of view.
don't think that PDP has this enough support amongst the Begonians to be able to assist the TPP with any election to come?
As we speak.
Okay.
But as a politician for years, there's a saying that one day in politics is plenty.
Right.
So as we speak, I don't see it. I don't see that
Currently. Okay.
Currently.
Right. Mr. Lance, same question to you. Do you think that the TPP needs the support of the PDP? Do they need to come together in order to defeat the PNM in any upcoming elections, as it stands right now?
I do not think that the TPP needs the support of the PPP. You see, I am of the belief that the Tobagonian is one of the most maturing populace in this area and in this region. You see, Tobagonians historically has made some political decisions. We will know of the wealth and the worth and the substance of the Honorable Hochoy Charles. Yet in a time and season, Tobagonians decided, in spite of your contribution, we do not want you to lead us in that capacity in this era.
Right.
They made the same decision with Ashworth Jack. Some of us may not know the personal and political wealth and worth of Ashworth Jack, his wealth of knowledge. Yet in an era, for a certain season, Tobagonians decided, we do not want you to lead us in that capacity in this era.
Right.
I am of the opinion that the Tobagonian has made the same decision where our lovely brother and comrade Watson Duke is concerned. I want to say the Tobagonian also makes that decision to institutions, political institutions, consistent with and evidenced by the last two THA elections. For the 6-6, it means Tobagonians were in the process of negotiating where do we go from here. They considered giving the both entities an opportunity because the results show that there was they were in the place of decision. The 2021 December THA elections, Tobagonians made the decision with determination and assertion. We know the results initially was 15-0 and eventually turns to 14-1. You know, water under the bridge. Yet, it meant that Tobagonian made that decision against the PNM, that we do not want you to lead us in that capacity in this era. And therefore, since the Tobagonian has made these decisions, they have eliminated Watson Duke, they have eliminated the PNM, and the TPP, by its launch a few weeks ago, that expression is a manifestation that the Tobagonian has decided, you are our choice for this era in that capacity. And in my opinion, the TPP should take that endorsement and run more than Usain Bolt.
Run faster than Usain Bolt. Leroy, what do you think? Do you think that they need to come together in order to defeat the PNM? Or does the TPP can't do it on their own?
We've heard a lot of opinions. We haven't heard a lot of statistics when it comes to answering that question. So let me introduce some statistics and facts to this conversation as it pertains to QTP's chances of defeating the PNM without.
EBC numbers there?
Without. IEBC numbers too included, yes. The first statistic, Magdalena Grand, right? 1 attempt of a launch, 1. Not 2, not 3 attempts of a launch. 1 attempt of a launch. Magdalena Grand, they kept check of how many people attended that launch. PDP kept check of how many people attended that launch. So we do not have to estimate. We know that by one count it was 1,200 and by the other count it was 1,400. This was not long before we saw a 6-6 situation between the PDP and the PNM. We saw where the QTP is concerned, no less than 2 attempts of a launch. And whilst we do not have fixed statistics, the first launch happened in a room in Shaw Park Multicultural Complex. And you could see how many seats were in that room. You could see how many were filled, how many were empty, and how many were standing. And we could see with near certainty that give or take a couple dozen persons, the first attempt had about 200 persons. The last attempt, I looked at it, I passed there in a vehicle, and so whilst we don't have chairs or persons counting, etc., I challenge anybody to say otherwise. We're looking at about 500 persons at the QTP launch.
This is on the on
which happened in town a couple weeks ago.
No,
Now you asked about, do I have
the stage in the sea?
At the stage in the sea.
Yeah.
Right. Now you asked about EBC numbers. It is a statistical fact that every single THA election that Watson Solomon Duke has contested, he got more votes than any other candidate, whether they be PNM or the PDP. That's a statistical fact that I would love to see Mr. Nelson, who is shaking his head right now, challenge. It is also a statistical fact that in every single THA election, and we're talking about 3 THA elections, Mr. Watson Solomon Duke would have won by one of the 3 largest margins. Usually it will be Ansel Dennis, Kelvon Morris, and Watson Duke. Of course, Ansel Dennis would have lost on the last occasion. But those are the 3 guys that do the best in terms of having a large measure or a large margin between themselves and whoever comes second place. It is a statistical fact that in his failed attempt to become mayor, he ran for 13 electoral districts. Not he was not on any of the ballots. But PDP candidates won 13 electoral districts, each of which in number is about the same as Tobago, about 3,500 people. And they got over 1,000 votes. So, with those statistics being put out there, it is for each and every one to ask themselves if they have a real chance, QTP, of beating PNM without Watson Solomon Duke, who I cannot see not gaining the vote of the absolute poorest persons in the Tobago society. But more important than all of that is not whether they could win or they could lose, because as we have seen, PDP winning did not result in better governance for the people of Tobago. It resulted in a shrinking of our economy. So what is more important than who wins is what they do when they win.
Right.
And the reality of the situation is when the first THA election in 2021 was called the January one, not the December one, we saw a 6-6 result.
Right.
Which, if I were a superstitious person, I would say indicates that the universe is interested in Tobagonians working together.
I'll cut you off on that, though, Leroy. I'll cut you off on that.
I just want to respond.
I'll give you 1 minute.
1 minute.
Yeah, go ahead. And then we'll go to the next segment.
I don't know what kind of statistic he said. He mentioned Kelvon Morris. Hold on.
Kelvon and Ansel.
and Ansel. And Watson. Kelvon and Ansel's statistic was not constant, did not hold.
In
the so you think in the next election, Watson won will hold? What kind of where you learn your statistics? So where you get your logics from? What kind of logic you call that?
Statistics.
Statistical logic. So you are saying you just said
that
no, but you said
my statistics.
Yeah, but it did not hold for Kelvon and Ansel. So you are saying it will hold for Watson?
It did in the first 2 elections of the 3 elections that Watson Solomon Duke led.
It held for
Kelvon Morris, Ansel Dennis,
but why didn't
and
hold
Watson
December
Solomon Duke won by the largest margins.
Okay.
In the last election, we saw a change where that is concerned. But
Right.
there was one constant, and that is that
Watson
Watson
Duke.
Solomon Duke
And so you're
was to be
saying,
counted among the top 3.
So you're assuming that he will continue to hold that kind
I
of...
make no assumptions whatsoever because
So
these things are not important. What is important?
What they do
is
when
that
they win?
we are in an era and a time right now that we are seeing clearly that we need to be working together.
Okay,
and by together, I'm not talking about Watson Duke and Farley, QTP and PDP. I am speaking about QTP. I know what is
He
written on the
renamed the
shirt.
party. He renamed the
No,
party.
I did not rename it. The shirt says QTP.
Well, yes, because one of
Right.
the P's turned backwards. I got
Right.
you. Yes.
So
Continue.
QTP,
Continue.
right?
Uh-huh.
QTP, right? PDP, PNM, and all other political parties are to come together at this time if Tobago is to be served properly.
Right.
Or we could choose to continue along the line whereby instead of our THA administration fighting for betterment for Tobago, they're fighting
come
for
together.
bacchanal
Right.
in Tobago.
So we have to move to the next segment, right? And I want to end on a light note. So we want to incorporate a segment now from the viewers on social media. We know we have a very creative internet, very creative people in Tobago as well as when it comes to the politics. So it seems that we have become very, very skilled as using the technology to make memes. All right. So the next segment, we're going to show some of the memes that depicts the current political climate in Tobago. Just want to preface this by saying these were memes that we, Tobago Updates, took from the social media. This was created by the public and not by us. All right. And so we don't want anybody saying that Tobago Updates create this. No, we took the production of the public and we are featuring them here. All right. So the producer, we had the memes on them up. We have a good few. We had to run through them quick because. All right. So first one, we have Mr. Ansel here, Mr. Ansel Dennis, and the title is Legacy of Lies. Legacy of Lies. So we're gonna move on to the next one. Who's this one here? Leroy Starring Boy.
Leroy George.
Tobago PNM Transformers. Move on. I see the Balizio and the chest they bright. Betrayal, full movie. We have our Prime Minister here. I see him. Who's that? Mr. Akil Abdullah. And we have Mr. Ansel Dennis in the back there. We move on. We have here again here. Leroy, they don't like you on the internet, boy. They say you're lost. All right. Tears of the Sun. Sun might be a kind of double entendre here. Because you're son of the soil. Yeah. So we have our Chief Secretary here. The Great Tobago PNM Ambush. We have Mr. Kelvin Charles. We have Mrs. Tracy Davidson, Celestine, and Ansel Dennis here again. Very creative people we have in Tobago here, boy. So now we have here Mr. Imbert signaling to us the airline that we're supposed to get, and it depicts a plane that is probably not even capable of flying, which is I don't want to comment on that. Yes, so you have one here depicting the scale of the boat that we just bought to bring in.
I don't get the joke.
To bring in the cargo. I tell you, it really it is smaller, guys. It kind of small in truth. But obviously this is an exaggeration, because compared to this, like a pirogue size, if you really look at the scale. But obviously it's not that scale. It's big, but who is this again? Oh my. So we have Mr. Sean here holding up Mr. Watson Duke. Very loyal, very loyal, Mr. Sean there. We have another one here again, Mad Max. Do you ever find it popping up real often in these memes, boy?
Yeah. Star boy.
Right. We have here the Trojan horse. So this will kind of depict what we was discussing tonight, PDP presenting itself as a Trojan horse into the fortress that is the Tobago People's Party, right? But as you see, if anybody doesn't get the reference, a Trojan horse is usually given as a peace offering, but really and truly it's a form of ambush, because inside the Trojan horse there are persons waiting, or let me say motives waiting to destroy you. All right, that's it. Or we have more? Oh no, we have the bamboo bolife.
Two hands and a dog.
Out. And it's a dog. I ain't seen the dog properly.
The smoke is in the shape of a dog.
The smoke is in the shape of a dog. Okay. But we have the bamboo bolife out there. Oh, another one talking about the topic that we have tonight. I swam back and they didn't take the olive branch, insinuating that Mr. Duke swam back from Trinidad.
No, this one I'm pissed about, You see this one here?
Audio Gate Primary School.
This one here?
Leroy is starring tonight.
Director, you could hear me? I want to complain about this one. This here is defamation of character.
As I said, this was taken from...
I am much taller than Ansel Dennis and Senator Lawrence Islop. I don't mind the memes, but please,
they can't depict you as
don't
that
defamate my character, please.
Right,
I'm much taller than Mr. Ansel Dennis and Mr. Senator Islop.
And now we have a picture here depicting Mr. The old Chief Secretary led in the parade by the minority leader and the leader of the Tobago arm of the PNM, Mr. Ansel Dennis. That's it? All right. Good. So we had a laugh here tonight. I think we should do some more features like that, I really think we should do more. According to the producer, what we should do to the producer, we're going to gather up some of the memes that we get over the past week. We will feature some of them before we end the program, just to end the program on a nice note, on a brighter side, right? But we have to, on that light note, we have to end tonight's program. I want to thank the panelists for coming out tonight. Wonderful discussion that we had, as usual, all right? And I'm looking forward to bringing them on again in the future so we could continue to discuss more of Tobago's issues, all right? But until next week, I have been Edison Thomas. We are live in Tobago Update Studios. Until next week, I bid you adieu. Have a good night.